What is something people would never in a million years guess just by looking at you? I work 2 jobs. One in a suit as a casino pit boss. The other a carpenter on my days off. All my clothes besides my suits, dress shirts are full of paint and etc. I'm a big tipper when it comes to customer service. You would be amazed the tip I give to fantastic service and the way I dress. That being said, I love pulling tricks. For example, I get fantastic service from someone at the Blu-ray store, yet I get someone different ringing up my order. I say, "Oh, and I'd like to tip that guy $25 for helping me today." The look on their face is just priceless. I rank in the top 1 of people with the highest vocabulary. This is completely juxtaposed to the fact I was expelled from high school at 14 years old and never actually finished school, not even a GED. Funny to think that I'm now a network engineer making $85,000 per year with an IQ of 138 despite being a high school dropout. Lol. Take that, teachers who told me I'd never amount to anything. Turns out that being autodidactic is actually very helpful. However, I'll stop right here before this comment becomes so sesquipedalian that nobody will care to read it. I'm mostly Middle Eastern. Despite being super pale and having blue eyes, the majority of my ancestry is Assyrian and Asiatic Greeks who are originally native to Anatolia, Asia Minor. I've gotten you that white, but wrong my whole life because despite being pale, I have strong ethnic features which tend to confuse people. Not a single soul believes I'm Middle Eastern until they see my relatives and they're like, "Oh, that's what happens when you have one white lady in your lineage who gives you all the recessive genes." That I speak fluent Spanish. For reference, I'm 5'7", blonde hair, blue eyes, and pretty pale. Basically the epitome of a valley girl when you see one. People walk into my job. I offer to help them. They look at me, nod their heads no, and do a kind wave and point at my co-worker who is Hispanic. Their jaws drop when I say necesito alguien que habla español, o si le puedo ayudar en esto oficina. 9-10 times I get a gasp and a pence que no hablas español. Never gets old. I've been feeling so deeply sad this past week. I used to have an amazing best friend who understood me like no one else in this earth. We stopped being friends a super long time ago. I'm so scared that I'll never have that best friend-sisterly connection again. I want to have an insanely close best friend who also views me as a sister. It feels impossible for that to happen to me. I feel so deeply lonely sometimes. I just want to die. Suicide sounds nice right now. I don't look like I play basketball. An ID show up to a court and sometimes people would be visibly like, "Who's this guy?" One time in college, me and a French exchange student with glasses were gonna play some classmates 2-on-2 and a guy on the other team said, "Really? We might kill you all." After I drop some buckets on and they figure it out eventually. The surprise factor is always good for like 3 easy buckets at the start when they don't know what I can do. I can read the Old Testament Bible in Hebrew straight from the scroll, with a cantorial style from Yemen. I'm a very secular-looking white American. It's a Sephardic Yemenite style that they've probably never heard before. My teacher had a family style that he passed on to me and his son before passing of the big C. Never got to see my bar mitzvah. I was technically deaf until I was 5 years old. I supposedly learned to speak by reading lips. I was able to have a surgery that restored a majority of my hearing, so I never went as far as to learn ASL, although I know the basics. I can somewhat still read lips, but not as well as I once did, especially since my eyesight took a nosedive in high school. I had some speech therapy as a child, so you would have no idea that I was ever deaf. I had a stroke age 24. I had pulmonary embolia that almost killed me 2 years ago. You cannot tell either by looking at me. It messed me up amongst other things, and now I have panic disorder. I can have a full-blown panic attack and people don't notice. I've had thousands upon thousands of full-blown panic attacks. Sometimes I can't keep it together. At 3/4 of the time I can get through without anyone noticing that I'm in a personal hell. Serious, intense, horrendous neurological issue past 6 months that's completely overwhelming and debilitating, but lip 100 normal. Tinnitus so loud I can't think sometimes too. Lost my aviation career. Boyfriend. friends, and on a bender road trip across the country barely able to take care of myself. The bucket list items need checked. Wake up every morning with dread, struggling with suicide idealization in chronic pain. 29. That I'm financially well off. Like, retire in my 20s well off. I wear sweatpants hoodie, work an engineering job, do programming as a hobby, and mostly just fuck around, barely even attempting to look functional. Never bothered to buy a house. Still just rent an apartment because I'm lazy. I drive a 9-year-old car. Not married, and spend too much time watching anime and playing games. I definitely do not look the part. That I'm a hard ass. I'm kind and sweet and compassionate, everyone. But I'm a hard ass with myself. I don't get to break down unless certain conditions are met. Then after I meet the conditions, they vary case to case. Then I get to have my little cry and baby myself for a minute, then toughen back up. I'm very soft with others, but I have to be hard on myself. I'm not unfair with me. Just tough. It works for me. I mask like nobody's biz. Sing dance like a moron all day. Meanwhile, my subconscious knows every day I'm in a deep hole, scratching, clawing to get out while the hole just gets deeper, wider, and fills my face with earth. The struggle is deep, real. But why make it anyone else's BS? We all have our struggles, all of us. And I'd rather PPL know me as happy crazy than dark, deep, depressed crazy. That I have a maladaptive daydreaming problem with another person, impresentable, pretty social, good at keeping face and acting normal. When alone, I talk to myself and pace around, fully invested in fantasy for hours or on end like a crazy person. Because I guess I somewhat am. I just don't know how to cope with reality. It's like I'm living a double life. You would never guess that by looking at me though. Under my smile and jokes, I'm literally praying I get cancer or another incurable disease, so I can die without my family having extra pain. I've had 3 attempts before at 13, 19, and 23, and the only regrets I have with them is how much they hurt my family. It's something in my mind tells me if I get cancer or something, it would give my family time to process losing me, and it would be better. That I have money. Grew up poor and lived like a student my whole life. I have a decent middle-class job where I can virtually dress like a well-groomed hobo. I ride a used bike or walk run 98 of the time to work. My hobbies are actually a side gig, so it appears I need money. But I just like to be busy. I'm so introverted that most people know nothing about me. Just the way I like it. That I like other men. Everybody is always so shocked when they find out. I don't hide it, but apparently it's not obvious at all like it is with a lot of other men. I've literally known people 4 years before they caught on, and usually only because I mention it in casual conversation. It always comes to a grinding halt. Never had a negative reaction though. Thankfully. That I'm apparently a humorous person. I wouldn't even guess that I'm a funny dude myself, but I've received multiple comments from different people saying that I'm funny. I talk funny. Jokes are funny. Stuff like that. One said something like I am a comedian with a cold face, while on the other hand that school people told me they were actually afraid of me at first. I work with kids at a school. They always ask if I have kids of my own. My co-workers talk about their children and make comments like, "You're so lucky you don't have any kids." They don't know that my first and only daughter was stillborn not long before I started the chub. I'm still not sure how to answer the question of do you have any kids? 2 things. 1, I have a mental behavioral disorder, what it falls under. I love Care Bears and My Little Pony, and how much I loved being in marching band in high school, and my love for writing and books, but probably would never mention how much true crime interests me. Imagine a multi-millionaire that wears flip-flops that don't match jeans covered in hydraulic fluid from a broken line on a John Deere tractor showing up at a formal in a Lamborghini. It was awesome, and the crowd went silent while my wife started laughing. People think I'm broke at first glance. I'm just having fun. That I suffer from chronic pain every second of every day. No one can see it, so they would never know. I work full-time and I am a single mother that does everything around the house, errands, etc. I also likely have MS or lupus. seeing a rheumatologist in 2 weeks. Just because I look normal doesn't mean I feel it. That I'm diagnosed with a chronic psychotic illness called schizoaffective disorder. I look like any other normal white woman out there. Even when having an episode, 8 times out 10 people won't know I'm suffering. Only the people close to me have learned to see the way I display the symptoms of an episode. That I'm actually pretty cool to talk to and love to listen to people's stories. A majority of people I interact with tend to keep me at a distance because my resting face looks so serious all the time. But I can assuredly say I'm probably the only person around them that would actively sit and listen to them. I started writing fan fiction back in the 1990s. Some truly awful stuff may be floating around the internet in places like Liviginal and Yahoo, mailing lists and lists of groups. Most of it was slash or yaoi. Some of it very adult and kinky. Looking at me now, I'm just a disabled or older lady with kids. That I'm married to a convicted murderer doing life in prison. When I tell people, they sort of blink and go, no, really? I have to graduate degrees and work in a highly visible professional career. So for some reason it just seems ludicrous to people that I have a husband who is incarcerated. That's 7 weeks ago. I had next to no strength. Was constantly bleeding out of my nose and mouth. Could barely open my jaws. And looked like I had no neck. This was BC. I had corrective jaw surgery on both of my jaws. Recovery is going well, and I am able to eat most softish foods at this point.